We're live. Hello, LinkedIn friends. Hi, my name is Sean Carolan, and I am the head of pre-sales at Instruqt. Instruqt is a browser-based virtual labs platform where your users can engage with your software easily on their own schedule. This webinar is being recorded, and the replay will be available for you to watch on demand anytime you like on this LinkedIn event page. Feel free to introduce yourself and post any questions on the comments tab, and we'll tackle your questions near the end of this talk. In the next 30 minutes, we'll show you how to sell without selling and reach your most difficult prospect, the developer, through hands-on technical education. We'll start with an overview of the technical software sales process and how it's changed over the years. And then we'll explore the mindset of the developer and why the traditional sales techniques don't work with them. We'll go over some real-life examples of companies who are seeing great results with hands-on learning as part of the sales process. And then finally, we'll talk about scale and reaching even larger audiences who may have previously been out of reach. Think about the last time you went shopping for a car. What was that experience like? What's the first thing a car salesman wants to do? That's right, they want to get you in the driver's seat and let you take it for a drive. And if you go to the car dealership and say, well, I just want to talk pricing, immediately that friendly sales rep will say, oh, we have plenty of time for that. Let's get you in this car and see how you like how it feels, right? And so this is an important thing, if you haven't worked in sales, salespeople love to get you, attached to their product, right? Before we start talking about buying the car and pricing and all of that, they want to make sure you really, feel like you like driving this car, right? You feel like you can imagine yourself in the driver's seat. So when we say sell without selling, we're talking about giving your users an experience. Instead of telling them, you're actually showing them or letting them participate in your software. Now, who is the most difficult prospect in software sales? It's this guy or gal, depending on where you work. Maybe, everybody knows this person, or maybe you are this guy or gal. Imagine trying to sell to this person. This is Guilfoyle from HBO's Silicon Valley. If you haven't seen it, he's your standard developer, right? He's very smart, probably much smarter than you, and he has a really snarky attitude. He's busy, and he doesn't tolerate BS. He usually builds his own tools, and Guilfoyle definitely doesn't want to spend his time talking to a sales rep. Now think about the traditional software sales process. Maybe you have a slide deck. That's not going to work here. A video of your software with flashy transitions and a catchy soundtrack. Nope. Catchy marketing slogans, not going to work. How do you get through to someone like Guilfoyle, the hardened developer, and convince them to advocate for your product? Now, traditionally, software sales worked a bit differently. Imagine, some executives playing golf and making a deal on the golf course or over dinner, and they shake hands and write a contract, and then the users get told, well, this is the software that you get to use. Fast forward to today, though, the developers have much more of a say, right? They have a stake in the game, and people rely on their developers and technical staff to help them make buying decisions. So while Guilfoyle or people like him might not be signing the check to buy technology, they have a huge influence on the technology, deciding process. What tools will we use? Where will we buy these tools, or will we build our own? So they're very influential nowadays. There was even a book some years ago called The New Kingmakers, all about how developers now are choosing their own tools and kind of, charting their own course. And the managers are happy to let them decide, right? Because they are so important to the software development process. So if you're not a developer, let's go on a little journey Take a look at this cartoon here and imagine yourself and put yourself in the shoes of the developer. So here's our developer deep down some rabbit hole, and she's troubleshooting a complex bit of code and is maybe getting close to finding the solution to a bug that's been causing issues for several months. If you're not a programmer, just imagine a twisty maze inside of another maze, and maybe all the walls are made of mirrors. And if you are a developer, well, yeah, you already know. Just substitute your favorite programming language into this comic. So we're deep in this complex problem. We've probably been working on it for an hour or two. And then out of the blue, hey, so did you get my email about that thing? Yes, I got your email. I'm going to read it later. And then poof, everything we were working on just vanishes, right, in a puff of smoke. So what happens when we distract the technical developer? Studies have shown that when you interrupt someone who's deep in the flow of a complex technical problem or programming issue, it takes up to 30 minutes or longer to get back to the point where they were before the interruption. Now imagine this person getting interrupted by a sales call. How do you think they feel about that? And why does this even matter, right? Why do we care? Well, we should care, especially if we're in the business of selling software or complex technical solutions. In the modern world of software, the developer may not be the one making the final purchasing decision, but they have huge influence on the people who do sign the checks. Why? Well, it's because most of the leaders and managers in the organization really don't understand how the software works at a deep technical level, especially in the IT industry. In the IT sector, our leaders rely very heavily on their technical users to help them make decisions about what software, what solutions to buy. Do they just trust the salesperson with their charm and slick product pitch? No. What happens is the manager or director will go back internally with the dev team and say, hey, devs, what do you think of this software? Is this something that we can use? Is it a tool that you feel comfortable with, that you've used before? So if you don't win the hearts and minds of developers, you could lose a lot of sales opportunities. Now, everyone's probably seen some version of this, right? It's the funnel, the sales funnel. How does it work? Well, you pour a bunch of visitors and leads into the top, and then ideally some of them come out the bottom as customers. But what about the users who refuse to get in the funnel? Think about the developers, the DevOps people, the operations, technical staff. These people have ad blockers on their web browser. So they don't even see your banner ad, right? We run into this internally. It's kind of funny. Our marketing team says, hey, what do you think of this campaign? And the developer team goes, what campaign? I didn't see any links, because they're actually literally blocking the ads, so they don't even see them, right? So this audience is almost invisible. Not only are they not near the funnel, I mean, they have no desire to get in this funnel because they know it's just going to eat up a bunch of time, and they don't have time for that. So what do you do? How do you sell to this very most difficult of prospects and convince them to be on your side? In order to do this, we need to understand what is in the mind of the developer. How do they think, and what motivates them? Now, I come from a technical background. I used to be a sysadmin, so I worked among many developers, and they're busy. They're always busy. Why do they have headphones on? Because they don't want you to bother them, right? The headphones are a little message like, hey, I'm coding, right? Can you give me some space? They're busy. They've got deadlines. They have demands. They've got, a sprint they have to work on to get certain features and bugs shipped by the end of the week, or else they'll miss the deadline and the project manager will be upset. So they're very busy people. They are measured by productive output. In sales, we're measured by, well, how much money do we bring in, right? How much sales can we create? People are looking at the developer in a different way. How much code did you commit? How many features did you deliver? right? Is the app working the way we expected it to? So they're very much measured by metrics, right? And then sales calls are at best a distraction, and at worst can just be, a huge waste of time for these technical people, especially if the thing you're selling doesn't solve a real problem for them, right? Developers want something that will make their lives easier. And so it's up to us to prove to them that our software can solve a real world problem that they're experiencing. And of course, they're skeptical. I've heard so many times from developers and technical teams about that piece of software they bought. And at the beginning, it was all unicorns and rainbows. It was going to make everything awesome. And then that software ended up sitting on the shelf. There's even a word for this. They call it shelfware. Many, many organizations have spent millions of dollars on stuff that just sits there not getting used because nobody took the time to ask the developers, hey, is this something you actually would use or that you have time to implement and understand? And then another problem is they often prefer to build their own tools. Developers are impatient. They don't want to wait or have to go shopping and do the software sales process. So what do they typically do? They go to Google, they search the internet, they ask their friends, what tool do you use? Maybe we could find an open source thing that would solve this problem, right? So that's just in a nutshell some of the things that are on the developer's mind. Here's the kicker, though. They have very strong influence over the economic buyer. Who's the economic buyer? That's the manager, the director, maybe the CTO, right? And these folks are leaning very heavily on their devs for advice. Hey, what tools should we use? A sales rep talked to me and he said we should buy this thing. Would you use this thing? So it's incumbent upon us. It's critical that we get the developers to use our software and understand it if we want to stand a chance of selling, software to a prospect. So that brings us to the next section. How can we engage someone who doesn't want to be sold to? That's the crux of the problem. The answer is you build a better mousetrap. You need a way to bring these people in without clobbering them over the head with an aggressive sales pitch. Video games. What you're seeing here is actually the first version of Instruqt. Instruqt was actually born inside of a video game cabinet. HashiCorp wanted a fun and innovative way to get people using their tools such as Terraform and Vault. So they hired us to create these video game cabinets where you could play Terraform just like it's a video game. The machines were a huge hit with the developer crowd. Let's face it, nerds love to play video games and they love to get their hands on with technology. So if you try to convince a developer with a slide deck or a flashy sales pitch, you probably won't get anywhere. But put a gamified hands-on experience in front of them, they can't resist. This is one of my favorite museums in the world. It's called the Exploratorium. And this place is in San Francisco. If you ever happen to be in San Francisco, set aside a few hours for the Exploratorium. It's amazing. I have been visiting this place since I was 6 years old, and I got to take my own daughter to the Exploratorium a few years ago. And unlike traditional museums where you can't touch anything, in this museum, everything is a hands-on experience. One of my first lessons with physics and space travel happened in this museum where they had an early video game called Lunar Lander. In this game, you have to land a little, spaceship, the lunar lander, on the moon, and you only have a limited amount of fuel to get the spaceship down safely. And so for the first time, young me got to understand momentum, right? Velocity and acceleration. And so I'll never forget that experience, right? It's stuck with me all these years. Let's face it, most technical training content is so boring. But developers love to play with something that's fun, maybe a little bit like a game. So make it fun. That's another point. If you want to sell to technical people, make it interesting and fun and engaging. Finally, make it easy. One of the greatest barriers to selling often is just getting your software installed. Now, imagine you did get the attention of a developer and then you send them to the try our software page. And the developer opens the page and they realize they have to download your software and then they have to install it. And then they need to follow a long how-to document with dozens of steps. Guess what usually happens? Yeah, they take one look and go, I don't have time for this. I'm going to go and finish that code that I was working on. Now, imagine instead if they could just open a web browser and immediately begin tinkering with your software. Now you've got their attention and they can begin to see the value of your solution and the problems it solves for them right away. This is the key question you need to answer for the developer. Is this going to make my job easier? Will it make me more efficient, or will it make some pain go away? That's what they really care about, okay? And seeing is not believing, unfortunately, in this case. Developers are very skeptical, and I could show you a great demo of the front end. I'm going to let you in on a little secret about demos. They are very, very idealized stories, right? Think of the art of the possible. Every technology vendor has got a flashy demo where nothing goes wrong. In most cases, usually the demo is working correctly. And it tells this story about how great your life will be when you use this software. But the demo is a very curated sandbox, environment. It's especially designed to make things look nice, right? So we kind of hide the bugs and all the weirdness of the platform and only show you the good stuff. So a slide-based demo, or even just like a canned video, a demo of your front end, developers see right through that stuff. Let's be honest. They're going to take one look at your front end demo and go, oh, well, can you click on that thing? Does it do X, Y, or Z? And then you go, oh, yeah, that's not included in the demo. I'll have to find an SE to show you that later. So the cute front-end demo, yeah, that's probably not going to work on this very skeptical audience. They want to see the real thing, right? They want to play with the real software in a real environment. Users want to get hands-on experience with the tool because there's no other way to really know, right? Seeing you run it in your cloud environment is a lot different than running it in our own environment. They're generally immune to high-pressure sales tactics. But here's the thing. Developers make the best champions. If you can convince that skeptical, hardcore sysadmin, DevOps persona that, yes, I like this software and I want it, now you have the best salesperson ever. They will go back to their boss and sell on your behalf. I've seen it many times. People actually find a tool that they like and feel like it's going to work, it's going to meet their needs. You could just sit back and let them do the selling for you, right? So sometimes in the world of sales, we call this the champion. This is the fan who works at your prospect, they work at your customer, and they understand your software, right? And they want it. So they tell their boss, I want this thing. You have no better advocate than the actual user who has got hands-on with your software and is going to campaign for it actively, right, to help purchase it. So as the saying goes, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. Sometimes this is misquoted as the proof is in the pudding, but it's actually the tasting that's the important part. We want to see this thing in action. So you may be curious, does this really work? Yes, it does. I could speak from experience. This type of education can be a very, very useful part of your sales process. Let's start with an example. HashiCorp is one of our biggest users of the Instruqt platform. And tens of thousands of users have gone through Instruqt training using the HashiCorp Learn and Developer. Now there's a new developer portal that just launched. So be sure to check out the HashiCorp developer portal if you'd like to, you can actually take Instruqt for a spin right now, right? There are links on that site where you can click it and start playing with HashiCorp tools, with the tutorials and hands-on labs that you just do in your browser. It's so easy. Everyone has a web browser, right? And so thousands of users have been through this training, which has led to increased awareness and more sales, happier users, and reduced burden on support, right? Because an educated customer doesn't need as much help with the tools. Here's our logo slide. This is just a slice or a sample of some of the different types of companies who are using Instruqt today to educate and sell to technical users like developers. So we got a whole cross section of different types of tech companies, everything from your cloud providers to your automation, security companies, even hardware, believe it or not. We've got Instruqt tracks that will teach you how to configure a Cisco switch, which is amazing to me that you can learn how to manage, physical hardware in a virtual environment. Now, the other question that might be on your mind is, well, will it scale? I've got this tiny team of people and, our budget is limited. How can we reach out to thousands of users without having hundreds of technical trainers or SEs to hold their hands and walk them through the process? Here's an example from Kasten. So Kasten, which is part of the company Veeam, they do Kubernetes backups, Kubernetes security, Kubernetes disaster recovery. They've got a whole suite of tools that can help you be better at Kubernetes. And their challenge, again, was how do we get through to technical users who are kind of wary of the traditional sales pitch? So what they did was create a free course. It's a free Kubernetes class, no obligations. You could just sign up and actually learn how to do Kubernetes on your own time. And it's a very lightweight kind of way to get people looking at your company, right? So you're learning Kubernetes, and then somewhere in the course, they say, hey, have you thought about backups? By the way, we have this backup solution, right? You've got all this data and stuff in Kubernetes. Here's a little chapter, right, or a side detour that you can take to take a look at the Kasten solution for doing backups and disaster recovery. This was launched at KubeCon last year, and the results were amazing, right? Beyond their expectations. Over 7,000 leads came in. And these aren't just, scan my badge kind of leads, right? Like you typically would expect from a trade show. That's a very transactional type of lead. I want a t-shirt. Scan my badge and I'm going to take your swag, right? Is that really a lead? I mean, let's be honest. You could mark up some pretty big numbers by scanning badges. This is a different type of lead. These leads have actually gotten hands-on with your software and maybe used it, right, in a real virtual environment. So you know that they're at least qualified, that they've seen your product, they've tried it out. They might even have some questions about what they could do with it. Much, much more quality in addition to quantity. So you'll get more leads, and you'll also get better quality leads because an educated customer or an educated prospect is a better prospect. Here's another one you could do for free. Our friends at Codefresh have a free GitOps fundamentals class. And this is a really fun course. I started the course. I've got my newbie badge. I was so proud when I got my little newbie badge. I wanted to keep going. And so during the course, you learn how to do Git. Git is a version control system. Unless you've been living under a rock for 10 years, you've probably heard of Git. But Git can be complex. It can be a little scary for a new user. So this is a nice lightweight way to get people understanding DevOps and CI/CD, and also at the same time introducing the Argo, right? The Argo solution. So thousands of leads have poured in. Over 1,000 of them have actually got the certification and finished the course. And more users keep coming, right? Because free training, there's nothing quite like free, right? And finally, my final example is our friends over at Datadog. Datadog just launched a learning portal. You can find it at learn.datadoghq.com. And in this portal, you can take all kinds of training courses and learn how to use Datadog for free. I'm doing the Datadog 101 course right now, and it's really great. I didn't have to figure out how to build a VM, and how to sign up for a Datadog account. Everything I needed was right in this learning environment, so that I can just log in anytime I have spare time and start figuring out how to use Datadog in a safe environment. So security people love Instruqt too, because it's a private sandbox that is outside the corporate network. And these Instruqt training labs, they clean themselves up when you're done, so you don't have to manage any of it. So Datadog has also put thousands of people through this training, and they have plans to expand it even more. How great is that when you have a prospect show up and they've already done all the basics and know how to use your complex software before you've even tried to engage with them, right, to talk about sales? They're already a user, right? So they've already understood your product and how to use it. So to kind of sum up here, if you're ready to sell without selling, we would love to hear from you. Instruqt is a browser-based virtual labs platform that's loved by developers and content creators all around the world. And at this point, we'd like to open it up for some questions. If anyone has questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, questions area. Take a look over here and see if we have any questions. Okay. You can always reach out. Oh, it isn't open to the audience yet. Okay, thank you. I just got a private message saying questions haven't opened up yet. So while we wait for okay, it just popped up. Sorry, there's a small lag. So I'm speaking live, but I think there's a little bit of a lag before my voice gets to you. Bring your questions. If there's anything you're curious about Instruqt. Okay, I see a question now. Is there any difference between developer education and customer training? Great question. Yeah, I would say there is. Developer education often will go a bit deeper than customer training. So the goals may be slightly different. Customer training is often about helping you get started. You may be new to a platform, and the customer success team needs to help you get started quickly without, holding everybody's hand and spending a lot of personal time in one-on-one meetings with each and every user, right? The customer success team is busy because they're doing support tickets. And how do you educate your customer and get them successful with your software in a short amount of time? So I think customer training, often these training tracks could be a shorter, more effective, more targeted toward beginners. Developer education will often take the next step and go a bit deeper, right? You can have longer content or trainings that might go a half day or a full day and go much more in depth into how to use the product or how to achieve certain things with your solution. But oftentimes there's some overlap too, right? You can reuse some of the same content that you use for developer education and public workshops and maybe employee and or customer training. Many times the content could be reused because it's the same content, right? So there's some overlap and also some differences. Great question. Thank you. Do we have any others? What is the backend used here? And what's the method of deployment for labs? Great question. So the Instruqt backend runs on Google Cloud Platform, but we support all three clouds, all three of the major clouds, meaning AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure. You can even combine all three, but the Instruqt backplane, our infrastructure itself, runs on GCP. The method for deploying a lab is pretty simple. You can use our web-based creator portal where you simply click some buttons and kind of configure what VMs and containers and apps you want to run. And then for our power users, we have a command line tool, and you can actually edit essentially YAML files. So if you've ever used Ansible or Docker or any tools like Terraform, Instruqt works very similarly. You write a little bit of simple code, and then you run a command to push your changes into the track, and that makes the lab come up in the web browser. Okay, another question from Liam. Developers often just start using tools that they find or that they like. Are there any tips for reaching developers directly? Yeah, this is a great point. Developers either already know some tool, and so they try to use that again at their next job because they're familiar with it already, or they go searching for a tool on their own. Any tips for reaching those folks directly? Some of this is about awareness, right? They need to know that you exist. So some traditional marketing is helpful. If I can't find you on Google, yeah, that's going to be a problem, right? Because I'll go searching for virtual labs platform or something similar and probably just start clicking through the links. My main advice there is be visible. Be visible, but not pushy, right? So you show up at the the big conferences, the small conferences, have a booth, have your t-shirts, get your brand out there. But perhaps more importantly, build an army of happy users. So one thing that's worked really well for us, at Instruqt is that our users love our platform so much, they take it with them, right, to each job, and they tell other people about it. So you can actually build evangelists for your product, and the product can sell itself. Sometimes this is called product-led growth. And the Instruqt track can be a part of that solution, because with this platform, I can send a link to a developer or put it somewhere the developer might find it and allow them to click the link and take a free test drive. So mainly it's about awareness with these folks, because traditional outbound sales doesn't always work, but if they see you, if they hear about you, they'll find you. If they have a real problem, they will come and find you. So I want to thank everyone for spending this time with us today. This will be recorded, so you can watch it later or share it with your friends. And if you'd like to find out more about Instruqt, just visit us at instruqt.com, and we'll be happy to show you what Instruqt can do for you.